So you want to play a warrior, huh? You want to do some big 8-bass DPS and you fancy Fury? Well, this is the video for you. In today's video, we will be going over a Fury warrior guide. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get in it with the stat priority. Now, the stat priority for a Fury is kind of confusing in the sense that unlike other classes where you have either one or two stats that you really want and need, while you can just say screw the rest, for Fury, you want to focus on one stat above the rest, but two other stats that you also want to make sure that you do not neglect. Now, I do not 100% trust websites to tell me what my stat priority is. Instead, I look at those websites, get a basic idea from it, and then go in Warcraft logs and see which Furies are putting out incredible amounts of damage. Those who make it into the 90% plus percentile catch my attention, and I take a look at their stat priorities. Now, the general trend that I see going for a Fury's stat priority goes as the following. It goes haste as much as you can possibly get, crit up to around 18 to 25%, then following with mastery. Now, when you reach that 25% mark for crit or somewhere along that lines, you do want to sacrifice some crit for either haste or mastery, because that's when mastery begins to scale better. At this point, with the crit you will have a good chance of becoming enraged every single time you use Bloodthirst, which means you want to maximize your damage by then focusing more on mastery than crit itself. The reason why haste is so viable is because it reduces the global cooldown recovery time and the base cooldown of abilities, which is really good for Bloodthirst since you can use it more often to have more enrage uptime, and since you can also use Raging Blow more often, which is really good since it will be one of your top damaging abilities, if not your top damaging ability. It also increases your auto attack speed, which means you will gain rage faster and use rampage more often, so it's a given that you want as much haste as you can possibly get. Food, gems, enchants, make sure that all of that is haste unless you can get strength instead. Excluding the neck piece, you do want Mark of the Satyr on your neck since it does proc often and does a pretty good boost to your damage. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the talents. Now, for the most part, the talents you will have are most likely going to stay the same except for 2 or 3 depending on an encounter or your personal preference. First one you want to pick is Endless Rage. No competition whatsoever. Auto attacks generate 30% additional rage, means more time you can use Rampage and Execute during an encounter, and it's just too good to pass up, and when compared to the other two, it's kind of a no-brainer. Second talent you want is either Shockwave or Double Time. Since Stormbolt no longer deals quadruple the damage to non-stunnable targets and enemies, and its damage is half of that of Furious Slash, it makes it an absolutely just awful talent to spec into in a PvE setting. Shockwave, however, is phenomenal for Mythic Plus dungeons when you need a bunch of mobs stunned so that they don't cast or run away, and Double Time is great if a boss is known to constantly knock you back 24/7. Use whichever you think is best for whatever encounter you are currently fighting in. Next set of talents is debatable. I see a lot of people going Wrecking Ball regardless of a single target or AoE fight, which I'm not sure if I completely agree with. Wrecking Ball is great in an AoE setting, but it's kind of just too inconsistent for my taste with its procs to be considered viable in a single target fight. Sometimes I get like 5 procs in a row, other times I get 3 procs in a full minute. If I were you, I would go with Avatar for single target and Wrecking Ball for AoE, such as the giant eyeball vagina thing in Mulgore. Next thing, Warpaint. As a Fury, if you are playing the spec correctly, you will be enraged a good amount of the time, which means you will be taking 30% increased damage while being enraged, which is a lot. Make life easier for both you and the healers and lower that down to 20%, especially since you have nothing to heal you with aside from Commanding Shout, which should be saved for the entire raid, and Bloodthirst, and of course, Enrage Regeneration. Next talent to choose will be Carnage. Makes the cost of Rampage less than what it originally is, which is great considering it's going to be the only thing that you will be dumping your rage in aside from Execute. Frothing Berserker is not that good compared to the other two. It's good, but it's just in a tier with 2 other great talents as well. But Massacre, on the other hand, can actually be used if you prefer it over Carnage. However, I just feel that in that last 20% of the fight, everybody is going to be burning the boss. Second pots are going out and your target won't be alive long enough for this talent to be as viable as Carnage is. Since Carnage is pretty much going to be in effect the moment you charge in, the moment you enter combat, while Massacre is only going to be useful at 20%. Next talent you want is Inner Rage. Makes it so that Raging Blow can be used anytime you want so long as it is off cooldown and its damage is increased by 150%. Going Inner Rage is a must, especially if you want that giant elephant dick DPS. Alright, so now we have the last talent set. A lot of you guys are probably going to disagree with me on this one, but I honestly prefer Reckless Abandon. Up until Raid started, I was going Dragon Roar to give me that extra 20% burst window to my abilities, but I just came to like Reckless Abandon much more than I did Dragon Roar. First off, it gives you an insane burst at the start with an immediate free rampage, and if you use it correctly and you have that trait which reduces battle cry to 50 seconds, that's a free rampage every 50 seconds. On top of that, it's really amazing in execute phase since you can just dump all of your rage and execute, building your stacks of Juggernaut, and once you are rage depleted, you can just battle cry and dump all your rage into execute again during that 100% crit window. Again, I see a good handful of people go Dragon Roar, I see a good handful of people go Reckless Abandon, it's up to you, but in my personal preference, I choose Reckless Abandon. Now let's talk about relics and the traits to your artifact weapon. For relics, you definitely want to aim for ones that give a +1 rank to the Wrath and Fury trait, which increases the damage dealt by Raging Blow, since you are going to be using it off cooldown and it is going to be one of your most damaging abilities, if not your most damaging ability. Avoid relics with traits that increase healing or give you additional health during Enrage, because those are just pure garbage. Now, as for the path that I took, I'm not going to get that much into it, but there are plenty of paths online for you to look at. Just know that I made it my main priority to max out Wrath and Fury as soon as I could and get Juggernaut as soon as I could as well. Alright guys, so we went over talents, went over stats, gems, and enchants. Now let's go over the rotation. There are 3 types of rotations that I want to cover in this section, and that is going to be single target, AoE, and execute phase. Before I start anything though, I do want to mention that I do have a burst macro which you can copy and paste in the description of this video, which will make Battlecry, Avatar, and Charge activate all at once with the press of a single button. Starting with the single target rotation, the general way you want to open up is with a macro immediately into a rampage, following with a Raging Blow, Odin's Fury, Bloodthirst, Raging Blow, Rampage, etc. Just use your common sense, use Bloodthirst and Raging Blow off cooldown, Rampage when you are not enraged or rage capped, and Furious Slash as filler when you can use nothing else. Also try to line up your Odin's Fury with your Battlecry since they share pretty much the same cooldown. There's only 5 seconds apart, and that 100% crit on Odin's Fury is gonna be very nice. Fury is pretty damn easy to play. Just practice the rotation over and over on the dummy, and in time it will literally just flow from your fingers onto your keyboard without a problem. Next is the AoE rotation. Very simple. Before you use Bloodthirst and Rampage, you Whirlwind. That's pretty much it. This will give you 1 stack of Meat Cleaver, which causes your next Bloodthirst or Rampage to strike up to 4 additional targets for 50% of the damage you dealt to your primary target. Now you need to break this habit. A lot of people who have raided in the past tend to Whirlwind and then Raging Blow. I did it throughout the entirety of the beta because I was too lazy to read Whirlwind and didn't see that they actually changed the effect of Meat Cleaver. Doesn't work like that anymore, guys. Now it's Whirlwind into Bloodthirst or Rampage. It's confusing, I know, but you need to break that habit. Once again, same thing with Odin's Fury and Battlecry. Try not to use it immediately off cooldown for no reason. Utilize them accordingly to the fight that you're on. If you're fighting the spider boss and ads come up in 10 seconds, wait the 10 seconds. Wait for them to pop up, then Battlecry and Odin's Fury on all ads and the boss. It will definitely be more worth it than if you were to just do it on a single target. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch up on is the execute phase. Important. If you are raiding, you need Juggernaut. You need it. This increases execute's damage dealt by 5%, stacking up to 99 times. Now, why would you not want this? The only reason why you would say I'm not rolling Juggernaut is probably because you misread or don't understand the trait. Juggernaut is one of the best traits because Furies execute all the time, sub 20%, which means you are going to constantly be building stacks. You never ever want to have this buff fall off, of course, unless you have something on you that requires you to get out of the raid, like Rot. Don't be a meter whore, guys. Do damage, but try not to kill your fellow raiders, please. It's very annoying, and I have to repair it makes me sad. Execute phase should go something like this. Do your rotation, but conserve your rage and battle cry when you come close to that 20% mark. And then when you reach that mark, start dumping all of your rage on execute. Once your rage bar is empty, battle cry if you have reckless abandon and start using execute conservatively. Do not dump it all immediately the second time. You do not know when you might have to move away from the boss to avoid a mechanic. If you move away for 3 seconds, run back in, and don't have enough rage to execute, that means you have 3 seconds left to get enough rage for a single execute. If you don't find that amount of rage in that time, you are screwed and your buff will fall off. So again, use execute conservatively until either battle cry is up again or the boss is about to die. Then just start dumping rage into executes like there's no tomorrow. But that is pretty much it to this video, guys. Went over everything you need to go over to play a Fury Warrior. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. I realize we don't have the glyph of root interruption anymore, but by God, guys, make sure you kick. I can't tell you how many times I pug mythics and no one has a kick on them to kick a stun, a heal, or a one-shot spell. Do not be a scrub. Put that on your bars immediately and keybind it, please. Anyways, guys, that is it to the video. I hope you all found this guide helpful. If you have any more concerns or questions, post them down in the comments below. And as always, guys, I will see you next time.